Hi, good morning to one and all. In previous lecture, we discussed about electric arc welding. In this lecture, we discussed uh, submerged arc welding. Here, the main difference between electric arc welding and submerged arc welding is the electrode type. In that electric arc welding, we use coated electrode. In this, we are used continuously bare electrode. It is the electrode is in the reel. It will come continuously come to the electrode joining area. At that joining process, we are supplying a flux as a supplementary material in a separate way. It is the main difference between the electric arc welding and submerged arc welding. Okay, coming to the principle of submerged arc welding. Okay, it is works on the common arc welding process. It is same as common arc welding process, but here it involves formation of an arc between a continuously fed electrode and workpiece. Next, here the blanket of powdered flux generates a protective gas as a shield and slag. Okay, but in case of electric arc welding, we are using flux coated electrode. The flux act as a shield. Okay, here which protects the weld zone. Okay, it is the welding setup of submerged arc welding. It consists of power source and control system to control the uh, wire reel and voltage and current. All these come under control system. Next, flux rate. Here the negative terminal is given to the work and the positive terminal is given to the electrode. Here the electrons flow from negative to positive, that means more amount of heat developed in the electrode side. Okay, next here it is a wire feeder to feed the electrode in the uh, torch by using the control system. Next, it is the flux hopper. From these the flux will move at the welding zone, that is welding torch. Next, it is the handgun. It is the replacement of the welding torch. It can move very easily. Okay, it is about submerged arc welding setup. The main parts of submerged arc welding is consumable electrode, power sources, granular flux, base metal, electrode holder. These are the main elements in the submerged arc welding. We will discuss one by one. Coming to consumable electrode. Here consumable means during the welding process we have to supply the electrode in a continuous way. Okay, it is known as consumable electrode. In some welding process, the electrode is not required. That process is known, that electrode is known as non-consumable electrode. In that case, there is no requirement of electrode. Okay, here the consumable electrode is the electrode which is having current on it, and when it touches the workpiece, here it gets melts there. Here like arc welding process, some amount of arc will be developed and heat arc or heat develop in between the electrode and workpiece. Due to the application of heat developed in between the electrode and workpiece, the material of the workpiece is melted, that is molten pool is created. That molten pool, after the solidification, the both the workpieces should be joined. Okay, the weld pool is shielded by using granular flux. Okay, it is separate in separate way at the welding area. Next, coming to power source. For operation of welding, power required to generate a good amount of heat so that the workpiece and electrode can melt easily, that is spark produced between them. That is, we have to set the required amount of voltage and amperes, that is power. Based on this we can get the good amount of heat. Okay. Next, coming to granular flux, it is used to, the main function of granular flux to avoid the exceeding heat which is generated when the electrode touches the workpiece. Next, it also acts as shielded material from the oxidation process. Next, coming to base metal. In these, the base metal in which have the weld is made to be carbon steel, that is it is used to structural and vessel construction. Next, low alloy steels, stainless steels, nickel based alloys. Based on the requirement of the process, we have to select the base metal. Okay. Next, coming to electrode holder. Here the main work of the electrode holder is to hold the electrode. This device act as a non-conductor device. Okay. Next, coming to work. In this welding process, a consumable bare electrode is used in the combination of flux feeder tube. Here we are using bare electrode without coating on the electrode. Next, the arc end of the bare electrode and the molten pool remains completely submerged under the blanket of granular flux, that is lime, silica, calcium fluoride and magnesium oxide. These are the granular fluxes materials. Next, the feed of the electrode and tube is automatic and the welding is homogeneous in structure. Okay. Next, there is no presence in pressure is applied for welding purposes. Okay. This process is used for welding of carbon steel, welding of low carbon steel, bronze, nickel and other non-ferrous materials can easily join, because here the electrode is positive and workpiece is negative for joining the non-ferrous materials. Okay. Next, the molten weld metal pool is thus entirely covered under the thick layer of flux and oxidation of weld metal is prevented by using this granular flux. Next, in addition, spatter and sparks are prevented while fumes and UV rays are produced. Next, the flux also act as a thermal barrier, enabling the faster weld pool formation. Next, the flux is fed into the weld zone by gravity flow through a nozzle that delivers it ahead of the welding electrode. The nozzle that operated by the control system. Okay. Next, the portion of the flux closest to the arc is melted. Next, it mixes the molten weld metal to remove impurities and then solidifies on the top of the weld joints. Okay, to form glass like slag. It can be removed by using the chipping hammer. Okay. Next, the slag and unfused flux granules on the top provide good protection from the surroundings atmosphere and good thermal insulation for the welding area. Okay. Next, as a result of slow cooling, a high quality weld joints is obtained. Okay. After welding, the unfused flux may be collected and treated, recovered, then we can reuse these unfused flux. Okay. Next, the power source used in, that is AC or DC, we can use both constant voltage and current type machines can be employed for submerged arc welding. Next, the electron current in the range that is 250 amperes to 2500 amperes. Next, the higher the current we can use, high in the burn off rate and given electrode wide diameter and material. Next, welding current higher than necessary should not be used as it would give out additional heat as well as filler material into the weld joint. Suppose if you use higher than the necessary, what happened here? More amount of heat affected zones will be developed. Due to this, the properties of the base material will change. Next, suppose on the other hand, if you use lesser welding current than the necessary, would result in lesser deposition of welding metal, and hence the joint strength should be weak. Next, if the joint design and edge preparations used in submerged arc welding process are somewhat different from the other arc welding process because of relatively higher deposition rates and deeper penetrations involved. Okay. Next, if the amount of flux is less, it would not cover the completely, thus resulting the oxidation of the weld metal as well as flashing and spatting. These are the different defects should be developed for supplying the less amount of flux. Next, similarly, if the amount of flux is too much, the weld gases generated during the process would not able to flow out, resulting in porosity, okay, in the weld metal. Okay, coming to advantages. Here it is simple and versatile. It has high productivity because we are using a continuously automated process. Okay, for that case, productivity of workpieces will be high. Next, weld metal deposition rate are 5 to 10 times as compared to the SMAW, that is shielded metal arc welding process, is known as arc welding process. Next, welding speed as high as 5 to 5 meters per minute can be achieved. Here continuously consumable electrode are using, but in case of arc welding we have to change regularly by completing the electrode in the holder. It is the time consumption process, but in this we are using one reel. Okay, it is the one of the advantages of productivity. Next, the productivity very high quality of the weld. Next, the toughness and uniformity of weld metal properties are exceptionally good. Next, it can used to weld a large variety of sheets and plates of carbon and alloy steels. It can be automated for greater economy. Okay, these are the advantages of submerged arc welding. Next, coming to limitations or disadvantages. Here the process is not suitable for welding of some materials such as high carbon steel, tool steel and most non-ferrous metals. Okay. Next, the parts to be welded such as horizontal position. Next, this is because the granular flux is fed to joint by using the gravity. Suppose if you do the overhead welding, the flux cannot come at the welding area because we are supplying the granular flux by using the gravity. Okay. Next, a backup plate is generally required beneath the joint during the welding operation. These are the limitations. Next, coming to applications. Okay, the process is also widely used for steel fabrication of structural shapes, that is I beams. Next, longitudinal and circumferential joints of large diameter pipes to prepare a thin and cylindrical shells to store the gases and fluids. For that case, we have to do the joints in a longitudinal and circumferential, that is ends of the cylinders. We have to attach the both ends of the cylinders by using longitudinal and circumferential joints. Okay. Next, circumferential welds can be made on pipes in this manner. Next, low carbon, low alloy and stainless steels can be easily welded by submerged arc welding process. Next, thick plate welding of ships and pressure vessels. Okay. Next, it is advantageous to transverse the workpiece under stationary welding head to obtain the required relative moment between the welding head and the workpiece. Okay. These are the applications of the submerged arc welding. Next, in this lecture we discuss the submerged arc welding. It is mainly used to join the thin materials. The main difference between the arc welding process and submerged arc welding process is in that we are used bare electrode in arc welding process. Sorry, flux core arc welding, because in that the electrode is flux coated. Here the flux is used to protect the oxidation from the welding pool, but here in this method we use a bare electrode and it is also consumable and it is continuously fed. But in case of arc welding we are using stick welding, that is in some length and diameter we have to regularly change after the completion of electrode. But in case of submerged arc welding, the electrode is continuously fed into the working welding area, and the flux also, here the flux is continuously supplied to the welding area by using the hopper from through the nozzle. Here it is connected to the control system. What amount of granular flux and wire feed rate per minute and feed rate, all these it will controlled by the control system. It is attached to the power supply. And another one more, here we are using reverse polarity, that is the work part is negative and electrode is positive. Here the electrons will pass from negative to positive, that is here more amount of heat is generated at the electrode side. For that, here less amount of heat will be developed compared to the arc welding process. Okay, it is about submerged arc welding process. Thank you.